everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. I have this idea in my head. What happens to the least of us will eventually happen to most of us. Meaning, you judge individuals, societies, not necessarily by how they behave at their best, but more so how they behave at their worst. What do they do to the least of those in that particular society, in the worst scenarios? The people, the institutions, or in this particular purpose or focus, the people that have no legal recourse, have no rights. How do you treat them? Because I guarantee you that's essentially a telltale in regards to your particular society. Because if you're dealing with somebody who you yourself consider to have the equal rights, well, yeah, you may deal with that person differently than someone you can take advantage of, that you can hurt, or that you can even kill. And there will be no repercussions for those things. Welcome to America. This was the Wall Street Journal. The Supreme Court on Monday quashed a prison mistreatment case filed by illegal immigrants rounded up after September 11th attacks on 2001 against former Attorney General John Ashcroft and other officials. High officers who face personal liability for damages might refrain from taking urgent and lawful actions in time of crisis if they fear possible lawsuits, Justice Anthony Kennedy wrote for the majority of the court. Federal authorities rounded up hundreds of predominantly Muslim and Arab men following September 11 attacks, and under policy to detain even on minor pretexts while terrorism investigations proceeded, held them for immigration violations. You pick somebody up. It's after September 11th. Nobody knows what's going on. The people who are picking these guys up, they're more nervous than they usually are. So let's keep going. Let's see what's going on with these nervous people. 6 Arab and South Asian men jailed at Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn, New York, sued, alleging their rights have been violated under unjustified detention. I said that wrong. Had been violated by their unjustified detention under the strictest conditions permitted by federal regulations, which included sleep deprivation, solitary confinement, and frequent strip searches, as well as unauthorized verbal and physical abuse, including broken bones. Is broken bones part... Oh, wait a minute. Just so I'm understanding this. High officers who face personal liability for damages might refrain from taking urgent and lawful actions in time of crisis if they fear possible lawsuits. In what situation is broken bones legal? How's that lawful? What I'm getting at is, those are nice words that the Justice Anthony is putting on that. But there is no situation in which broken bones is part of the process. Now, what they're saying here is the people who make the decisions shouldn't be held responsible for those decisions. And the Supreme Court doesn't want to waste this time picking through those decisions to see the problems and the logic and the ideology at work in those decisions. They don't want to do that. We don't want to deal with that. We don't want to deal with that. The high officials, those guys, the elites, the people who are making these poor and bad decisions that's getting people hurt and killed, those guys are free from blame. Because if they're not free from blame, they may be hedged in making certain decisions. That's kind of the goddamn point. That's kind of the point. The point is the hedge. The point is, yes, you want them to actually think about what the hell they're doing before they do it, particularly in an emergency. Because what you're talking about here is they rounded up people under the most slimmest of reasons, but held them in the most strictest forms of conditions, including beating them. That's amazing. That's amazing. Why is it okay for this to happen? I don't understand why it's okay for them to round up immigrants. I don't give a shit if they're immigrants and they're here legally or not. Isn't there a particular posture, a particular professionalism that the people don't end up with broken bones? How about that? How about not verbally and physically abusing them? You don't even know if these people had anything to do with the thing that you're talking about. And you are beating them and putting these people in torturous conditions. It's amazing. Home of the free and the land of the brave, my ass. How brave is this? You're hurting the least of us. The people who don't necessarily have the rule of law guarding them in that sense. Those are the people you hurt. Those are the people you take advantage of. That's amazing. And the High Court just said, hey, the people who initiate that stuff, we don't want to deal with that. It's amazing. It's amazing. If the allegations are true, what happened to respondents just days after September 11th was tragic, John Kennedy wrote, joined in whole or part by Justice Roberts, Clarence Thomas, and Alito. But while the federal law would permit inmate lawsuits against the state officials over similar allegations in state prisons, Congress had no such remedy for those in federal custody. The court dismissal claims against Mr. Ashcroft, former Federal Bureau of Investigation Director Robert Mueller, former Commissioner James Ziegler of the Immigration and Naturalization Services. These claims will call into question the formulation and implementation of a general policy, Kennedy wrote, allowing court review of the whole course of discussions and deliberations that led to policies and governmental action being challenged. The court suggested that other remedies against executive overreach, such as habeas corpus suits challenging illegal detention, were more appropriate. I'm sorry that you guys have such a hard job to do. It's so difficult being a Supreme Court judge, making shit up as you go along, pretending as if there's some level of some process that goes into you making decisions other than some political ideology. This court is a sham. This court is an absolute sham. They put people up there who are Democrat spun or Republican spun. So you already know how these guys are going to vote, depending upon who put that particular justice up. So yes, Clarence Thomas is always going to be a right-winger that's batshit crazy. Alito, yes, he's going to vote a particular way. All these guys are going to vote a particular way based on their own ideology. Even Obamacare. Obamacare was toast. It was toast. The Supreme Court was going to kill it. Kennedy, if I'm not mistaken, the person who's the head of the court, got skittish because he thought that the public will look at him a particular way if he guts the president's key accomplishment. What's his name? The one that just died, Scalia. Until the day he released that information saying that it was okay, Scalia bugged the shit out of him. And that's the God honest truth. I could be, no, this is true. At least from my memory of events, I put it that way. So if there's holes in it, fair enough. But that was the basis of it. It was toast. How these guys are going to vote is already baked into the cake of their ideology. Bush is never going to put up somebody who's somewhat liberal in the same way that Obama would. Obama would. He's somewhat weak. But somebody who's not weak would not put somebody up who's against their own supposedly ideological beliefs. What I'm getting at here is you have a bunch of right-wingers on the court. And the lawsuit comes up, says, hey, does the state power, and when I'm saying state, I'm talking about the government, the federal, state, etc., do they have the justification or the jurisdiction to break bones of people who they pick up for whatever reason and to torture those people? And if such is the case, can lawsuits be brought against the people who order those things? The judges are saying, well, wait a minute, we don't want to deal with the people who ordered those things because we would have to think through their decision process. I mean, we would have to come up with these ideas and everything else on how and why they did certain things or the things that they did. That's a pain in the ass. We would rather you guys do this in a different way. I'm sorry, it's a pain in your ass. I know it's so hard being a judge. I know it's so hard. It's so ridiculously hard. Nobody understands your pain. Pity the Supreme Court Justice. Pity the Supreme Court Justice for having to do his goddamn job that he doesn't want to do. They're hurting people. They're breaking bones of people. In some cases, some of those people died in custody. And you guys are saying, we don't want to touch it. Now, the catch is, by saying we don't want to touch it allows Trump and his cronies to do the same thing without hedge. It allows them to do the exact same thing without any hedge, without anybody saying, whoa, wait a minute. We need to check our actions to make sure our actions are just and representative of the case that we're dealing with. Otherwise, we could be slapped with lawsuits. That's a hedge. It's supposed to be that way. It's supposed to be a pain in the ass. It's supposed to inhibit their actions. We don't want them to have free-handed actions because those actions are usually taken poorly. In this case, so poorly, they were breaking the bones of some of the people they were catching. I'm unaware of this law that allows that. What allows that? These people were picked up on minor charges. Are you shitting me? I'm amazed that this shit gets to go on. It's just due course. Everybody just walks around as, yes, I'm eating my cornflakes. I'm eating my lunch at this particular restaurant. I'm going back to my job. I want to have sex with my wife. And I'm going to rinse and repeat tomorrow. Do you see what they're doing? Is this in the Constitution? The court decision allows for high-level officials to violate the Constitution without fear of personal accountability. A dangerous message in this time of rampant state-sponsored discrimination against Muslims and immigrant communities, said Rachel Metro, an attorney at the Central Constitutional Rights in New York, who argued for the plaintiffs. Yes, I agree. I agree. That's exactly what it does. Oh, this guy went too far and murdered somebody. You can't hold me accountable. You can't hold me accountable. Supreme Court. Thanks to Supreme Court. Do you understand what this is? And understand, this doesn't just apply to Muslims. I know people like to look at this and say, oh, that's just them. It's not just them. It's also you. The moment that you protest something that does actually touch you and you're considered a terrorist, this happens to you. It doesn't have to be Muslim citizens. This also happens to you. Understand what you're cheering when you're cheering for this stuff. It's an amazing thing. You have people who cause a decision or make a decision. It's a poor decision. That poor decisions get people hurt, killed, injured, or whatever. And the Supreme Court says nothing can be done because you are in a time of crisis. And we don't want to look through each and every decision that the person made to get to the decision that they made or that poor course of decisions that they made. In dissent, Justice Stephen Breyer said the allegations fell well within the scope of the authorized Bivens doctrine. See, this is the thing about the Supreme Court. People think that they're fair arbiters. They're not. They're not. Go to your pool hall, flip a quarter. That's your Supreme Court. They mold the decision depending upon their ideology. That's the truth. Look at the cases and tell me that's not true. There is no moral quandary. There is no discussing law or any shit don't matter. These guys are making case depending upon their ideology. Get 4 Democrats, get 5 Republicans. There you go. You got your Supreme Court. Those decisions are canned choices. You already know what they're going to vote. It's not a mystery. It's not a mystery. It's only this weird occasion where somebody votes against their thing and then everybody's like, oh, holy shit, can you believe they got voted against this thing? Why is that a holy shit moment? It's a holy shit moment because it doesn't happen. At least not often. Alright, I'll leave it at that. Keep an eye on your government. They've just made the choice that says your government can beat, hurt, injure you. And there will be no legal recourse for high officials that made those decisions. Alright guys, if you enjoyed the content, feel free to share, write, subscribe. You can always support the work